Scott King was born on April 27, 1927, in Heiberger, Alabama, to Obadiah Scott and Bernice McMurray Scott. She grew up in a rural area on a farm in the segregated South. Her and her family were relatively poor, but they valued education, and her parents instilled in her a strong sense of pride and determination. Coretta attended the public schools in Marion, Alabama, where she quite excelled academically. She was particularly gifted in music and had aspirations of becoming a concert singer. Her early education exposed her to the harsh realities of racial segregation. However, she also saw the power of education as a way to break down these barriers. Coretta went on to attend Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio in 1945, where she earned a degree in music and education, and her time at Antioch was more crucial in shaping her worldview. At Antioch, she was exposed to more progressive ideas and was introduced to the civil rights movement in general. She was involved in the student movement for racial justice and worked closely with other students to organize activities that promoted equality. In 1951, after graduating from Antioch, Coretta moved to Boston to study voice at the New England Conservatory of Music. It was in Boston where she met Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1952, and they soon got married on June 18, 1953. This marked the beginning of her life as a key figure in the civil rights movement, but it also meant a shift away from her musical aspirations, as she would later become deeply involved in the activism alongside her husband, predictably. Overall, her early life was shaped by rural poverty, racial discrimination, and her passion for education and music, all of which laid the foundation for the remarkable role she would play in advocating for civil rights and social justice in the decades to come. Furthermore, Coretta Scott King's activism during her marriage to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was both profound and multifaceted. From the moment she became a part of the civil rights movement, she not only supported her husband's work, but also became an influential leader in her own right. Here are some of the key elements of her activism during their marriage. The Montgomery bus boycott was one of the first major events of the civil rights movement, which was obviously triggered by Rosa Parks' arrests and refusal to give up her seat to a white man. Coretta supported her husband's leadership in this pivotal boycott, which was a non-violent protest against segregation on public buses. She was involved in organizing the meetings and raising awareness about this cause. With more on nonviolent direct action, Coretta was deeply committed to the philosophy of nonviolence that her husband Dr. King championed. She too believed that love and peaceful resistance were the most powerful tools for social change, and so she participated in marches such as the famous 1963 March on Washington, where Dr. King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. In addition to her commitment to racial justice, she also found herself fighting for gender equality within the civil rights movement. She found herself advocating for women's rights and the participation of women in these leadership roles. Additionally, Coretta didn't just stop at gender equality. She also understood that empowering future generations was a key element to lasting change. She worked to establish programs that helped educate children in the principles of nonviolence and social justice, and she was also an advocate for improved educational opportunities for Black children, as she saw education as essential to overcoming the systemic barriers of racism. Coretta was also a global advocate and recognized the global dimensions of civil rights. She worked to raise awareness about racial injustice worldwide, making international trips to connect with leaders and activists in Africa, Europe, and Latin America. She understood the interconnectedness of struggles for freedom and equality and sought to build solidarity among oppressed people all over the world. As Coretta's influence and reach across the nation was continually growing, she was invited to give a powerful speech at Harvard, which she did at February 7, 1968, which was just a few months before the assassination of her husband, MLK. In her speech, she spoke about the importance of nonviolence, the civil rights movement, and the need for justice and equality. And it was a very significant moment because she highlighted not only the ongoing struggles for racial equality, but also the moral responsibility of all Americans to confront these social justices.
Millions of Black Americans, there is a special dimension to our national crisis. We are not only caught up in all the evils of contemporary society, we are its lowest and most deprived component. For most of us, this is not a society of abundance, but a society of want.
Her work and activism evolved, shifting towards preserving and expanding the vision of justice, equality, and nonviolence that both she and Dr. King had fought for. Some specific types of her activism include her expansion of the civil rights movement. While Dr. King's death was a profound loss to the movement, Coretta Scott King became a significant force in ensuring the continuity and expansion of the advocacy. She believed in broadening the scope of the movement to include issues like women's rights, LGBTQ rights, economic justice, and etc. In addition to her international advocacy as she traveled extensively to promote global peace, she also was an anti-war activist. Just as Dr. King had opposed the Vietnam War, Coretta continued to speak out against the U.S. military interventions abroad, including speaking out against the Gulf War and the Iraq War, as she advocated for diplomacy and nonviolence. Finally, Coretta Scott King passed away on January 30, 2006, but her legacy still continues to live on. Her children, particularly her daughter, Bernice King, and son, Martin Luther King III, have carried on her work, and the King Center continues to be a leading organization for the promotion of Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolence. In terms of the King Center and beyond, the King Center continues to educate people around the world about Dr. King's vision and Coretta's own contributions. Today, the Center offers a variety of programs and initiatives that focus on social justice and nonviolence as it hosts conference, educational workshops, and peace-building initiatives. In terms of global recognition, Coretta Scott King's contributions have been increasingly recognized in the years since her passing. Statues have been erected in her honor, and she is remembered for her leadership in the social justice movements.